Good morning. Welcome to a brand new week of hashtag LDeduchat, and we've got a fantastic lineup for you this week. We've got a brilliant month ahead. It would be amiss of me not to mention that obviously we're now heading towards the next phase of school reopening. So in terms of your commitment levels, we really appreciate that you have joined us this morning, but we do appreciate that you will have varying commitments moving forward. Primaries are looking to open from this week onwards in some form for various years, and then looking at year 10s and 12s moving forward in the next few weeks. So good luck with that, and please do join us on Twitter if you want to stay updated during the sessions and in between sessions. We have at Chiltern TSA. Make sure you go on there and make sure you follow, and that way you'll get updated. Click that notification button. Today we have the fantastic, wonderful Naureen Khalid, who is be looking at governance and looking at the broader side of governance in terms of how governance roles are implemented within schools, the impact that they have on decision making, and obviously we'll probably be looking at the current situation and their input into how schools are going to be entering our next phase. There's so much to governance, and sometimes it's very unseen within our schools, so do ask your questions. So without further ado, Naureen's video.
Good morning. Thank you for joining me on my session on governance. Before I start with the session, I'd like to give you some background about myself. I've been a governor now for over 10 years. I started as a parent governor in a foundation school. When that school converted to become an academy, I became a trustee. Later on, the school decided to join a multi-academy trust, and I became a member of the school's local governing body. Right now, I am a trustee in a multi-academy trust of primary schools, and I also chair 2 local governing bodies. So my session today is about the role of governors and the impact. So let's start with that. In England, there are about 250,000 governors. Legally, governors can't be paid to be governors, and hence we are all volunteers. And this makes us one of the largest volunteer forces in the country. People who are not governors themselves or are not involved with governance usually don't know much about what governors do. This is why I'm really grateful to the organizers for asking me to talk about governance today. So let's start with our roles. I will be talking in greater detail about our roles later on in the session, but for now, a summary of what we do. Governors ensure that there is clarity of vision and ethos in the schools we govern. Not only do we ensure clarity of vision and ethos, we have to ensure that there is good strategic planning too. Governors hold the head teacher and senior leaders to account for the educational performance of the school and its pupils, and the effective and efficient performance management of staff. And finally, we oversee financial performance of the school, and we make sure that money is well spent. So we have 3 core roles, which are ensuring clarity of vision, ethos, and strategic direction, holding the school leaders to account, and finally overseeing the financial performance and ensuring that money is well spent. Now let's look at each of these roles in a little more detail. First, let's consider our role which is concerned with ensuring clarity of vision, ethos, and strategic direction. Governors ensure that there is clarity of vision of what the school will look like in the next year, in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years. The way the vision will be delivered is determined by the ethos of the school. It is the role of the governing body to ensure that the ethos is clearly defined too and is clearly modeled by the board. The board should set an ethos of high expectations for all. The board needs to ensure that the vision and the ethos is clearly communicated to everyone so that there is buy-in from all. Vision and ethos should be reflected in our policies and procedures. The board also needs to ensure that there is clarity of strategic direction with clearly defined medium and long-term strategic goals which are understood by all. Clarity of strategic goals is important if we are to make our vision a reality. As strategic leaders, governors need to ensure that they are connected to the communities they serve, especially the parents. So how does the governing body go about fulfilling its first core role? Well, governors and the SLT agree key priorities to make the vision a reality and to move the school along the agreed strategic direction. The school then makes plans to make this vision a reality and to deliver strategic goals. The details of these plans are in the school development plan. The governing body needs to have processes in place to monitor progress in realizing the vision. It does this by asking questions to assure itself that the school is moving along in the agreed direction. Going on to our second core role of holding the school leaders to account now. The governing body has to hold school leaders to account for statutory duties, for the strategic priorities which have been agreed between the governing body and the head and the senior leadership team, progression and Ofsted focus areas. This is especially important when Ofsted has identified weaknesses. The governing body needs to assure itself that progress is being made to improve those areas where weaknesses have been identified. So our second core role involves us holding the school leaders to account for pupil learning and progress, pupil literacy and numeracy, and this is especially important in primary schools, admissions, attendance, exclusions, information about staff, information about recruitment, how easy is it to recruit staff, how easy is it to retain staff. Staff well-being is really important for us to monitor, as is staff workload. We have to hold the senior leadership team to account for the quality of teaching across the school. And we need to ensure that performance management is a robust process, but it is also fair and transparent and contributes to school improvement. So how do we hold the head and the team to account? Well, the board needs to understand and rigorously analyze educational data. We need to see and understand performance tables. We should be familiar with ASP and what it tells us about our school, and school visits. School visits are really important to perform our second core role, but these school visits must be focused on school improvement. All of this requires us asking right questions of the head and the SLT. Questions such as, who are the highest and the lowest performing groups of pupils, and what is the school doing for them? Questions about the performance of various groups of pupils, such as pupils with SEN, pupils EAL, girls versus boys, and as well as any support and interventions the school has put into place for them. We ask questions about the best and the worst performing subjects and what that tells us about the quality of teaching across the school. We also need to know if staff have access to and opportunities for relevant CPT. The Governance Handbook, whose latest edition was published in 2019, has examples of many more other questions which we can ask in order to hold school leaders to account. Coming on to our third core role, which is overseeing financial performance and ensuring that money is well spent. State schools are funded by the taxpayer. We are therefore custodians of public money. Hence, it is really important for us to ensure that this public money is well spent. In order to do that, boards try and ensure that there is at least one member of the board who has financial expertise, who is comfortable with numbers, and who can read management accounts, etc. This member of the governing body usually links up with the school business manager, and they will ask questions and report back to the board, as it is necessary for the whole board to understand the financial position of the school. There are various questions which we ask while carrying out this role. Again, asking the right questions is important here as well. Questions such as, are resources being allocated in line with the school's strategic priorities? Does the organization have a clear budget forecast? These forecasts should come to the governing body, and governors need to scrutinize these budgets. And ideally, the forecast should be for the next 3 years. We should make sure that we have a resource policy, and we should ask questions around that. We need to assure ourselves that we and the school are compliant with all financial regulations. There will be government regulations which we need to follow, and the school will have internal financial regulations which we must ensure are adhered to. Again, the governance handbook gives us examples of the type of questions which we should be asking. And these were the 3 core roles, but we have many other responsibilities as well. One of the most important jobs that governors have to do is to appoint the right person as a head teacher. When I say the right person, I mean it has to be a person who shares the board's vision and ethos, who would like to take the school along the same strategic direction as the board, and who is able to lead the school to realize strategic goals. We also need to ensure that safeguarding of pupils is at the forefront of all that we do, and that everyone understands that safeguarding is everyone's responsibility. We need to be aware of our responsibilities towards pupils with SEN. Similarly, we need to assure ourselves that health and safety regulations are followed and that the site is safe for everyone who uses it. For safeguarding SEN, health and safety, the governing body usually appoints a link governor who, like the finance link governor, keeps in touch with the relevant staff members and prepares reports for the whole board. It is also necessary that we know that there are laws which we need to follow. This slide will give you an idea of some of the laws which we need to be aware of and follow and adhere to. I've talked a bit about questions we ask about pupil progress, finances, etc. As a governor, there are few questions we always try to ask, irrespective of whether it's financial or progress data we are looking at, or reports of new initiative, etc., which are presented to us. These questions may be familiar to you too, and you may be asking these at departmental or SLT meetings. They are simple questions, but they are really important. Questions such as, how do you know? It's important for us to ask for evidence. For example, when it's reported that a new initiative has been successful, we need to ask for evidence of success. Another important question is, what difference are you hoping for with this new initiative that you are launching? Why this particular initiative? What other options did you consider? For example, if a new initiative is being planned, then we need to ask if other options were considered and what advantages did this particular one have over the others. Really important for us to know and for you to tell us, how will you know it's working? Knowing what the success criteria are is also very important. And then we need an idea of the timeline. So we do ask questions about, when do you hope to see results? Now, these seem like very simple questions, but they give us lots of important and valuable information. While performing our job and carrying out our core roles, it must be remembered that a governor governs in the best interest of all pupils, accepts collective responsibility as the governing body is a corporate body. So if there was something which was put to a vote and I voted against it, but the majority voted for it and the vote is carried, that then becomes my collective responsibility because it's a corporate body. Although I voted against it, I then go along with that decision and make sure that that decision is carried out. Governing body meetings may discuss quite sensitive and confidential matters. Therefore, school governors need to ensure that they maintain confidentiality. And really important is that we avoid discussing individuals. When we are discussing pupil progress, or when we are discussing any racial or bullying incident which happened, or we are looking at the quality of teaching, for example, we do not talk about individuals. We do not talk about the pupil who was involved, a single pupil's progress, or the pupil who was involved in those incidents, nor do we talk about a single teacher's, individual teacher's performance. We talk about quality of teaching across the school. Having heard a bit about our role and what we do, you will now be able to appreciate why effective governance is important. All the roles that I've just talked about are really important roles for the school to function well. If governance is effective, then these roles will be performed well. The National Governance Association, NGA, has identified 8 elements which are needed to ensure effective governance. We need to have the right people around the table. This means people who have the right skills and people who are able to bring a diverse perspective to discussion. We need to understand roles and responsibility, and this goes without saying that this is really crucial. Good chairing is hugely important. A good chair will ensure that the governing body is working well, that there is challenge and support, that all governors are able to contribute and their individual skills are utilized well, and that the head has the support they need. Professional clerking is hugely important as well. A good governing body will ensure that their clerk is more than just a minute taker. They need to be governance professionals who can advise governing bodies on various issues. Good relationships based on trust are important for effective governance. It is really important that there is a good relationship between the governing body, the head, between the governing body and the school leaders, between the governing body and the staff, between the governing body and the community, and between members of the governing body itself. Knowing the school is hugely important. When looking at all our roles, you would have got an idea that we do need to understand what the school is like. We need to understand the data. We need to have an understanding of issues which staff face. We need to know our parents. We need to know about the children, about the community. We've already talked about the type of data we need to be familiar with. It's also really important that we know and seek the views of parents and staff and children. Effective governance requires a commitment to asking challenging questions. Governance is all about questions, and governors need to be comfortable doing this. We also need to have confidence to have courageous conversation in the interest of children and young people. Situations can arise where difficult conversations have to be held. Governors need to have confidence to have these conversations. And it's easier to do this if you remember that the motive behind this is making sure the interest of our children are safeguarded. In order to ensure effective governance, governors try to ensure that agendas and our meetings are driven by issues of school improvement, that everything which is discussed in a meeting has one purpose at its heart, making school improvement. That the governors asks the head for data and the head presents this to the governing body meetings in form of the head's report. But we must remember that all the data we ask the head to produce, it should lead to school improvement. It should have some bearing on school improvement. School visits need to be focused on school improvement. I know it's lovely to go into a school, to chat to children, to talk to the staff, to see the school, the working school, but these visits need to be focused. Otherwise, they'll have minimal effect on school improvement. Succession planning is really important for the chair of the governing body as well as for the head and for the other staff. Now, we need to know whether our school helps teachers move into middle leadership, middle leaders move into senior leadership, senior leaders, if they want to move into headships. Is that the culture in our school? We also need to plan about have it in our heads that if our head leaves, how will we recruit a new head? Succession planning for the chair is hugely important too. A good, effective governing body will have a succession plan in place. So if the chair does leave, there isn't a vacuum. When governors governing, now coming on to the impact of effective governance. When governors are governing effectively, then the job they do has an effect and impact on the school. Governors support and challenge school leaders and cause school leaders to evaluate what's happening in schools. And through this constant evaluation, we drive school improvement. As one of our roles is to ensure that there is clarity of vision and strategic direction. So when governance is effective, the school continues to move forwards to achieve the strategic goals which have been agreed. Effective governance will ensure that stakeholders feel like stakeholders, that their voice is heard. When this happens, the stakeholders buy into the vision of the school. A governor is a governor of all, for all pupils. When we look at any data, we need to ensure that we ask questions about and seek answers on behalf of all students. This means that the effect of our work will affect educational outcomes of all pupils. An effective governing body will manage resources so that they are used well and are used to maximum benefit. This will also help drive school improvement. Looking after finances and other resources also helps to ensure that the school is sustainable. A good governing body will look after the most important resource, the school staff. This will result in them feeling valued, and the staff which is valued, who is happy and satisfied in the job, will lead to school improvement. Talked a bit about this earlier, but just to go over this again, an effective governing body will appoint the right person as the head, but headship is a lonely place. Heads shield the staff from any problems and worries, but they need someone they can discuss matters with. An effective governing body supports the head. The role of the chair is crucial in this. The chair can act as a sounding board for the head. A head who feels supported will be a more effective head, which is obviously good for the school, and that is an important impact of good governance. This is especially important during the current COVID crisis. Effective governing bodies are ensuring that they leave the operational matters to the heads, but they are letting the heads know that the governing body is there for support when needed. Hopefully, that has given you some idea about the work we do and how our work can have an impact on schools. I'd like to end by saying a huge thank you. On behalf of all the governors, I would like to thank heads, teachers, staff, support staff, anybody who works in a school. A huge big thank you for all that you do for the children of our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Naureen. That was absolutely brilliant. A very comprehensive review of and an outline of what governance should look like and what it should include. Having been in that position myself as chair, I can see that you hit all the right notes there. That was really, really good to see, and some really good questions that are coming up. So what I'd like to do is, first of all, I'd like to welcome Naureen to the stage. If she, I think she has unmuted and she has turned her camera on. Welcome to the E-Stage.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone who joined us today. There have been some questions which I'd like to address. First one was, is the role of governors strategic? And yes, it is. It's absolutely strategic. We leave the day-to-day running to the head, the day-to-day running of the school and everything which happens in the school to the head and their teams. We've appointed the head, so we need to let them get on with their job. And we take a long-term view of what the school should be like, what happens, but remain strategic at all times. There was another question about Ofsted and governors. What do governors do when Ofsted come in? When Ofsted inspect a school, they would be talking more to the heads, and they will be walking around the school, doing lesson observations, looking at making a judgment about quality of teaching, safeguarding, etc. So most of the interaction between the inspectors is with the head and the staff, but governors do get a session. Governors are asked to come in and chat with the inspectors, and this is a session where the head and their teams are not there. So it's just the governors and the inspectors. What the inspectors are looking for is, do we know our job? Are we doing our job well? Is our job having an impact? Do we know our school? Governors really should have a really clear idea of the strengths of our school as well as our weaknesses. And that's what inspectors would like to find out, whether we have that clarity of where the school is at that point. And if there are any weaknesses, do we have a plan? Ofsted wouldn't really mind if there is weaknesses, as long as the governors can say, yes, we know this is a weakness and this is the plan we have to come out of that weakness. So we do talk with inspectors, but most of the work with the inspectors is concerned with the staff in school. There was another question which leads on to the same question as strategic about, this was on Twitter actually, a comment about executive and non-executive leaders. The head and the senior leadership team are the executive leaders. They're the ones who will manage the school. And we as governors are the non-executive leaders of the school. And we, like I said, leave the day-to-day running to the head and their teams. There was one question which about the application process. How do you become a governor? That's a really good question, and I would encourage everybody to become a governor. If you are a parent and there's a vacancy in your school, that will be advertised. and these are usually elected positions. So you stand for election, and you write. Most of the schools will ask you to write a statement about why you want to become a governor. Parents vote for it, and hopefully you get the votes you needed and you become a parent governor. Same with staff governors. If you want to become a staff governor in your school where there's a vacancy for staff governor, you stand for election. Or you can, if you're not a parent or a staff and you would like to become a governor, you can contact governors for school. You can contact inspiring governors. You send them your CV, and they will then match you with the school which has a vacancy. And I think it's for teachers, it's really good to think about becoming governor in a different school. That means that the other school benefits from your expertise, and you also take away something from how to see when you see how that other school functions. Especially those teachers who would like to go into a leadership role. It's really, really wonderful CPD to join a governing body, because that tells you what the governance looks like, how the strategic thinking is done. That all a normal teacher in the classroom would have that expertise unless you join a governing body. So that's really good. So yes, do look at these inspiring governors, etc. sites, and if you're interested, send them off your CV, and fingers crossed I'll see you at one of the governors sessions.
Yeah, I was just going to say, add to that, some local authorities are a lot more active, and they actually have people in positions that encourage governance. So I mean, like the one in Luton Borough Council, we've got Caroline Dawes, who actively seeks people to work within the schools within the area, and works with local community groups to find good prospective candidates for governance, but also offers things like seconded roles and stuff like that to other schools. And so there's a big range. So local authorities can be a really good source if they're quite active as well.
Can a teacher be a governor in their own school? Yes, I've just mentioned that. Yes, teachers can be governors in their own school. Many governing bodies have a position for staff governors, whether they be maintained schools or academies. And again, it's a really good idea to become. But one thing to remember when you're becoming a staff governor or a parent governor, that you are representative staff, but not a staff member, but you're not representing the staff. You are so you're not like a union member speaking on behalf of the staff body. You are bringing your perspective, you're bringing your educational expertise to the board table. Again, for the parent governors, again, you are there as a parent governor, but you have to leave your parent hat outside. You think about all the children when you're governing, not just your own child. So those are important things to remember. This question, how can MAT ensure and support that LGB roles can strengthen even more? That's a really good question, and really pertinent in nowadays when the MATs are increasing. Any good MAT will ensure that it treats the LGB with respect, and it treats the LGB and it has the scheme of delegation makes sure that the LGB acts as the eyes and ears of the trust board. Especially if it's a big MAT, the trust board will not be able to have the on-hand or on experience of each school. So the LGB really comes on in its own if it's allowed to really represent its school. Good MATs will ensure that there is a two-way communication between the trust board and the LGBs. They can do it by various ways. There's good communication between the CEO and the trust board is accessible to the LGBs, and any good MAT will have that in place. Are educational professionals allowed to become governors, or are they not allowed due to aiming for diverse membership? No, educational professionals are allowed. In fact, it's really good to have somebody with educational expertise on there, because they would have the way a teacher understands ASP data, the way a teacher understands educational performance data, the way a teacher understands performance tables will be more than what I perhaps would do. So it's really nice to have somebody who has that expertise, who can drill into the data and ask really relevant questions. So yes, obviously it's nice. Diversity means that we would like we don't want to have a governing body which is all educational professionals, but we would like a governing body which has an educational professional there as well to ask these questions.
Should we dive straight into the question from Samantha, which we alluded to before? Samantha Kello, as in what's the governor's role during the COVID crisis?
Yes, that's really important. Now, right now, what we really need to understand is that the heads and the teams are under huge amounts of stress. The last thing a governor should do is add to that stress. So don't keep emailing them all the time asking for information. Heads are doing all they can to guidance is coming out left, right and center at them. So they are trying to keep abreast of that. Good heads are making sure that the governing body has the information it needs. Right now, although governance is about challenge and support and finding a balance between challenge and support, at the minute, I think it's more about supporting a head and less about challenge. So be sure that your heads know that you are there to support them. Be sure that, obviously, ask them, have they done the risk assessment? What is the staff feeling like? Especially questions around safeguarding of children. Does the school is the school as sure as it can be that all vulnerable children are being looked after? Is there, how are social services and schools communicating with each other? But at the minute, be sure to let your heads know that the governing body is there to support them if needed.
Where do you want to go next, Maureen?
There was one about conflict of interest, which is really important.
Yes,
yes, there will be conflicts of interest. But what's important about conflicts of interest is how they are managed. Every governor should fill out a form at the beginning of the year, which details any conflict of interest they have. There should be a standing item on all agendas. As soon as the meeting starts, you may have something which has come up on that agenda, which you have a conflict of interest in, so you declare that. Then it's a case of managing that. For example, if the school is going to undertake a building project and you have a company which does building projects, it's very important that you declare that. And then if you step out of the meeting so that you don't influence any decision you make. So conflicts of interest need to be managed, and a good chair, a good clerk, etc. will make sure that these are managed well.
There are other conflicts as well in terms of if you're going to be a governor in a school where you may have a relative or a partner, etc. So it's not the case that you can't be, like you said. It's a case of it's the awareness factor, and there is a conflict of interest section on the application process, I believe, as well.
You're a staff governor, and when you're doing the performance management of the head teacher, you will not be on the performance management group, because you can't performance management your boss. So that's a conflict, and you will step out of that. But that doesn't mean that we don't value the staff governor. It just means that is a conflict, and we like to take you away from that conflict and manage it that way. There was again one about how much experience is required.
Yeah, that's from Hidea. Yeah.
No, age is not an important matter. In fact, we would like, again, diversity means we would like to have diversity of age as well. It's really important that people who traditionally governance was something which you did once you retired from your day job and you wanted to give back to the community and you had more time and you joined the community. But I think every NGA has quite come out quite strongly about this, that we would really like younger members of the public to join governing bodies to bring that perspective to it. So age isn't a factor. If you're young or you're old, it doesn't matter. It's not going to stop you becoming a governor. Experience, you don't have to have an experience. You didn't have to have worked as a governor before you join the governing body. A good governing body will have a good induction process in place. A good governing body will make sure that training and CPD needs for the governors is also looked after. So if you don't have experience of governance before, don't let that put you off. A good governing body will use the skills which you bring and make sure that anything which is lacking as far as the governance side is concerned is dealt with through CPD.
And don't forget that you will get membership to NGA in most cases as well, which offer a whole host of free CPD to governors of different levels and different roles as well. So from that point of view, there's a huge support structure in place inside and outside your immediate role. So yeah, there's a lot there. Just to add on to that then, just to do with the workload issue. So are there roles that are more workload heavy within governance than others? Because
chairing is quite workload heavy. Obviously, the chair will have slightly more to do as compared to other governors. They'll have to make sure the agendas, they'll liaise with the clerk and the head to make sure the agenda has items on it. They will have meetings with the head teacher. Some of these meetings is just to make sure that the head is being supported. Sometimes the head might just want to pick up the phone and have a chat with you, nothing to do with, just use you as a sounding board. But again, a good chair will make sure that they delegate as well, so that they don't take on too much on yourself. A good governing body will try to make sure that the roles are spread evenly, that everybody has because there's no point being a governor and then not having anything to do. You might not find that very enjoyable then. But a good governing body will make sure that everybody does have a role to play. But yes, a chair is slightly more workload heavy as compared to other roles on the governing body.
And somebody just asked on Twitter as well, in terms of if you're a chair at another school, to do with the balancing of time, if there's a requirement that you need to do something during the school hours, how does that work?
A good governing body will, we need to look at the workload of teachers as well as governors. When you're setting your meeting timings, it's good to have a discussion around and try to find a time when everybody can do it. School visits obviously will have to be done during school time. And if there's a governor who is for example, you're a teacher and you're working in another governor in another school, you cannot take time off from your teaching responsibility to do a school visit, in which case the governing body will say, fine, if you can't do the school visit, we'll give you something else to do. And then it's a matter of looking at everybody's availability, everybody's scale, and working around that.
An open dialogue with your home school is really important in terms of your role. And making sure that they're as much as possible on board with what you want to do for your own development within the school as well.
It must be said that companies now are sort of waking up to the importance of governance, because and they will let you have time off. Some will be really good and let you have time off, paid time off, but others will say you can have time off with unpaid to do your governance duties. But yeah, it's something for the whole governing body to sit together and work out a schedule which suits everybody, the school staff as well as the governors. Question by Ruby Judge: how can schools ensure that the governors know the school well? Knowing the school well, school visits are really important for this. So make sure that governors do school visits. Important to realize that school visits should be planned in advance. Don't just turn up at school because the school is, they've got teaching to do as well. So make sure firstly that the school visit is linked to your school development plan, is linked to school improvement. Make sure that you get in touch with whoever you're wanting to visit beforehand, arrange a suitable time to go in. And the school also should make sure that they facilitate these visits as much as they can. Make sure the school should make sure that educational data, ASP, etc. is shared with governors so that we can look at that data and we can ask questions around it. So all of this helps in knowing your school. Again, if your governing body is a member of the NGA, they have lots of resources on their website about knowing your schools. Have a look at that, and that will tell you about what to do and how to do it.
I'm going to touch on Alistair. It's a comment stroke question, I suppose, in terms of the 360-degree feedback. You thought that was a thing that's in at the moment, and I think that's quite distinct from the appraisal process that you'd have as a governor for a head teacher. I suppose they're completely different. One is a coaching development aspect, and the other side of it is actually deciding somebody's performance. Is anything you want to add to that one?
I don't think governors get involved in the 360 appraisal of the head. They can do if the head wants to, but we won't force the head to do a 360 appraisal if the head doesn't want to do. If the head is taking part in a coaching or a mentoring scheme and one part of it is a 360, then it might be nice for the governors to get involved in that, and especially the chair, because the chair would have had a much closer working relationship with the head for that. But yes, that's a completely different process to performance management. The performance management makes sure that the head, you decide 2 or 3 objectives for the head to deliver on. You may have a meeting mid-year to see whether these objectives are being delivered, or does it need to be changed. There might be a conversation to be had that, we had set this objective at the start of the year, but things have changed and something's moved on, so we'll change that. But that's, so 2 different things.
Bal, any suggestions for raising the profile of governors within school and to parents?
School visits. Make sure that you go do your school visits so that staff know you. Schools are really good at inviting governors to various events. Make sure that you try to turn up to one of those events. It's nice for, for example, the Christmas play, the whole school would have spent a lot of time putting that on. So it's nice to have the governors there to appreciate that. And that also tells you about a bit about the culture and the ethos of the school. Some governors do a newsletter to, a termly newsletter to parents. That's a good way to do it. We put our minutes on the website, on the website, so that's a good way to let parents know that what the work is being done. We also we make sure that 2 or 3 governors are present at parents' evening, and we do a parent questionnaire. That's a good way to find out the views of the parents. Go and join, be there for open evenings or open events. Just make yourself visible as much as you can, and that ensures that everybody knows who you are and what you do.
And I suppose that's where it's really important, like you said, that the governing body gets together to make sure that the workload for that, because that's workload and time again, is spread out amongst the people that can do that, and make sure that you are visible. So that is part of your role as a governing body, I suppose, to make sure that you are visible and that you have made yourself available for people to see you. Fidella's asked a question, and I suppose this is to do with when you're looking at saying it's student focused, and it's to do with outcomes and to do with school improvement. So how much work, how much information do you get about students after they leave the school? Fidella's made a particular reference to tracking PP and SEND pupils while they leave secondary school to college or university. So how much information do you get about that?
We get information about destinations, where they are going, how many, again, we're not talking about individual children or individual pupils. We'll say, 3 did an art course, 2 went off to medicine, 4 have done an architecture course, 5 have gone off to teacher training. So we get an idea of destinations. We don't track them as such in universities, but secondary schools do invite students back. Some a term into their university career to come back for various events. Many secondary schools have a very good alumni network, and that's about one way of keeping in touch with your students. And people who've passed out like to come back to schools, to their school, see the staff, and it's a really good way of motivating students by seeing that this was me 3 years ago and this is what I could be. So an alumni network is a good way to keep in touch with them, but we don't track the performance as such.
And then we've got Angela Dean, again, through the application process and about who can and who can't. She's asked what kind of information would you need to put in your personal statement, and can a non-teaching support staff apply if they are in a parent support role? Now, I'm assuming that means as a school governor in terms of in your own school. Is that specifically aimed at teachers, or can non-teaching support staff apply?
A staff governor is a staff governor, whether you are a teaching staff member or a non-teaching staff member.
Okay.
Anyone can apply and should apply, because again, that's we've got the head there who's a member of the teaching staff. We might have somebody else there. We get the deputy heads and other people coming to give us reports. It might be really good for the support staff to bring that different perspective into it. So yes, the staff governor position is open to anybody who works in the school, whether you be teaching staff or support staff. That's a good position. And I think the question is, can a staff member become a parent governor? Is that yes? There is no. If you are a staff member in the school and you have a child in that school, there's nothing stopping you to applying to become a parent governor as well. You'll just we'll just have to remember the conflicts of interest. So if because you're there as a parent governor, but you're a staff member as well, so you still won't be able to do the performance management of the head, because we'll have to keep in mind those interests. But as long as that's managed, I don't see why a staff member who's also a parent can't become a parent governor.
Just very quickly, it's a quick one. Marion just said, I think you'd mentioned that putting to do with visibility of governors. The minutes on website, are they not confidential?
Minutes will be of two types. One meeting can discuss something which is confidential, so those minutes will be recorded as confidential minutes and they don't go on website. Right. The other minutes are public minutes, and by information, freedom of information, anybody can access them. So if you don't put them on the website, but I like to see it, I can request you, and you will, by law, you're required to send me those. So you might as well put them on the website. I mean, not everybody does, but if you do that, that's one way of doing it. But confidential minutes then don't go on the website. It's only the approved public minutes which have no confidential matters which go on, or which will go on the website. I
mean, transparency is the thing in terms of all the different roles that we have. And obviously when there's safeguarding issues or other confidential staff issues, then obviously that's something that's separate. Just while you're looking for a question, just one a question that a few people have asked online, but also just linked to what you said. When you're trying to get a diverse range of people, diverse thoughts, diverse experiences, etc., what challenges do you have? I mean, as a trustee or as a chair of governors, to make sure that you've got that diversity within your governing body? What challenges? What would you say the challenges are?
Some people might think governance is not for me. I don't have the skills to be a governor, but I would say everybody has a say. If you are a stay-at-home mum, you've got skills. You're managing a whole household. You're managing the budget. You're managing your children in your house. Everybody has some skills which they can bring. So some people might think, it's I don't have a postgraduate degree, or I don't have my education performance, and it's a school, and therefore I need to be really highly educated, and that's not true either. Anybody can become a governor and should become a governor. It's up to the governing body to make sure that the application process is open to all, and make sure that everybody feels welcome, that they can become governors. And
Where's the recourse for governors? So obviously if people have an issue with the school, they work through their chain of the grievance procedure and ultimately ends up with the head and then with the governors. What happens when there's conflict within the governing body? Where does that go?
Yes, that's a good governing body should be able to have open and frank discussions. Yeah. Like I said, if you're having there's an issue that I don't agree with, the governing body must make sure that I get a chance to view all my viewpoints, and then there's a vote. If it's an issue that I feel really, totally, really strongly about, but the vote has gone against me, then I have two choices. I can either say, yes, I lost. I had the opportunity to put forward my viewpoint, but the others didn't agree with me. But now that the vote has gone through, it's up to my responsibility to make sure that whatever that decision was is carried out. But if I feel I can't, then I must walk away, because there's no it's better to resign at that point if you feel that strongly and you can't live with that decision. If it's something which you think is going wrong and the governors are not doing so, for example, you think this finances are not being looked after properly. You've tried to raise it, but it's been brushed under the carpet. If you're an academy, you write to the ESFA, or if you're a maintained school, you write to the local authority. You bring it into to the attention of the authorities to make sure that, because at the end of the day, we are there for all the children. If anything which we do or we think is going to harm children, we need to take a stand on it and do whatever we can to change things.
I think we've got time for just one more question. Any that jump out at you that we haven't covered?
As governors, are you involved in the curriculum in the school or not? We won't be involved in writing the curriculum. We would like the school leaders to explain to us and assure us that it's a broad and balanced curriculum. It covers everything which needs to be covered. It covers at least as a minimum what is required in the national curriculum. We would ask the leaders to assure us that it's a progression model, that there is, what a child learns in year 1 is then built up in year 2. But we won't tell them what to put. If the school leaders say we are going to discuss Egyptians in year 1 and then we'll go on to Romans in year 2, it's not the governor's job to say, no, you need to do the Romans in year 1 and Egyptians. But we just need to understand why what is being taught in year 1 is being taught in year 1. And we need them to assure us that everything the child is learning is built upon year by year. And that's what we do, as make sure that's broad and balanced, but leave the writing of it to the professionals.
So I suppose we focus on that when we look at Ofsted, we're looking at the 3 I's. We'd be looking at the first I as a priority, the intent side of the curriculum in terms of why you're doing it and why you're doing it now. Is there anything that you can see?
How much time do you have to dedicate? It's how many meetings? Well, they're usually about 3 meetings a year. It can be about, an hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours long, depending on what your governing body has decided. They could be in the morning or they could be in the evening. So when you become a governor, that's one of the questions to ask. What is the frequency of meetings and when do you meet, and then see whether that fits in with your availability. And
don't forget, these are voluntary positions. So if you have a challenge in your normal role, that's your priority at the end of the day, and and most governing bodies are very understanding of that. So
also ask the governing body if they have a governor expense policy in place. If you don't let the fact that you have childcare and you can't afford childcare stop you from becoming a governor. If you are really want to become a governor, talk to your governing body. They should have an expense policy in place. Governors can't be paid to govern, but reasonable expenses can be paid. So if the only reason you can't become a governor is because you need to pay somebody £10 to look after your child, and you can't pay the childcare, the governing body should be able to help you, and there should be something they can do for that.
Excellent. Well, I think we'll wrap that up there. That's a good point to finish. So I'd just like to thank you immensely, Naureen. It's been absolutely fascinating seeing all the different types of questions, and a lot of things that I wouldn't have thought about asking. And thank you for actually spending the time to actually go through and discuss those points with us. So thank you so much, Naureen, for your time.
And I'd like to thank you for giving governance a spot on your wonderful program. I've been looking at the videos, and you've got some really, really good CPD going on there. So well done on that, and thank you for including governance also.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. A very important aspect, a vital aspect. I think Adrian's tweeted, when it's done well, the impact is immense, and I think that's what we need to aim towards. So thank you so much for keeping that conversation alive. Right, that's the end of our first session back into the last part of our summer term. Fantastic session today. Please do share it, do subscribe, do like our videos. It lets us know whether they've been of use to you as well. I know how many people are viewing, but I don't know if you like them or not. So click the like buttons on the videos. Thank you so much. And on Twitter, don't forget, we have @Chiltern TSA. at Chiltern TSA. Follow us. Any conversations that you want to continue are on there. Links will be posted. Naureen is actually very active on Twitter as well. Go on and have a look at her UK Gov chat, which she runs various sessions. Really, really good conversations to do with the parts of the school's strategic side that you don't often get to see. So I think...
And again, if there were some questions which you see, which I haven't answered, or you think of some questions when you look at the video, drop me a tweet and I'll try and answer it then.
That's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you for that. And so this week, what have we got coming up? This week, we just had Naureen. Tomorrow, we have Sam Strickland. We have Creating Cultures. We've got Andrew Cowley, who'll be looking at wellbeing, workload management, and we'll be looking at how we deal with those issues. A lot of stuff to do with wellbeing that we have covered, and I think it's really important to actually focus at a time like we're in at the moment on the wellbeing workload of our staff. Adrian, our CEO, will be looking at how he markets the schools within the trust and actually taking that further and sharing his advice and tips on how you can do that too, and how you can actually improve staff recruitment. And then we've got the fantastic Dr. Patrice Evans from Chiltern High School for Girls, outstanding school. She'll be looking at what makes a brilliant middle leader. I can't think of a better person to end the week, a better person to discuss that topic. And so that's your fantastic week ahead. This month, so these are all these, and these will be tweeted out. I think they already have been. We've got the likes of David Weston, we've got Kat Howard, Stuart Locke, Corey Bateman, we've got Tom Bellwood, we've got Penny Rabiger, we've got John Rees, Chris Nichols, Mark Mailer, Teresa Kelly, Sir David Carter, Steve Mumby, and Oliver Caviglioli. Fantastic month ahead. Let's see how we're going to deliver this as we start to reopen our schools. So this is me signing off for another session of hashtag LDeduchat. Make sure you use that tag so we can find your comments and so that we can engage with you, share your thoughts, share your views. This is me, Arv Cowshaw, signing off from another session of hashtag LDchat, Leadership, Development and Education Online. Take care and stay safe.